Out of mind, out of sight. A series of strange attacks leads Buffy to suspect an invisible student.
We open with Cordelia walking with some friends making jokes.
She is wearing way too short of a skirt.
When Buffy runs into them with a bunch of weapons.
I like that no one really cares why she has them. I thought that was actually kind of realistic.
Haven't you complained about that earlier, though? How people just treat shit like it's not a big deal?
Yeah, but this is Cordelia and these other people that are just like, whatever. Think about if somebody dropped a bunch of weapons, like those kind of weapons, in the middle of a hallway. You'd just be like, what the hell? But you wouldn't go over and be like, what are you doing with those?
Yeah, I probably
like,
would.
I need a teacher.
I probably would ask them what they were doing with those.
Well, out of curiosity, more so than like, are you going to kill somebody with that mace? That's very impractical. I can suggest some superior alternatives.
Okay, I think our viewpoints are a little different. Buffy makes a bunch of excuses, and for some reason she seems to want to be accepted by this group of people.
It was another clumsy attempt to portray Buffy as feeling ostracized. Then we cut to a teacher hammering the theme home.
So talk to me, people. How does what Shylock says here about being a Jew relate to our discussion about the anger of the outcast at society?
And I was already irritated with this episode.
We cut to the locker room with the best actor I've seen in a long time.
Hey, Mitch, you going to the Bronze?
Yet again, this is a scary scene, scary in quotation marks, set in a locker room.
Cordelia's date, Mitch, hears a girl laughing and then is attacked by some CGI.
A fear that we can all relate to. Cordelia goes around the halls handing out chocolates as she campaigns for May Queen votes, and Buffy is sad that she doesn't get one.
And she reveals that she was the May Queen back at her old school, and that's why she feels all bummed out.
Then Xander and Willow start laughing at some previous experiences that were not shared by Buffy, and Buffy is sad. I get it, it's dumb. Let's move on.
Then our Oscar winner runs up to let everyone know he found the CGI battered kid from earlier. I really like Principal Snyder's quote, though.
There are no dead students here this week.
For some reason, they stop to let him tell Buffy what happened.
Buffy wants to go check out the scene of the incident, and Willow distracts Principal Snyder in a admittedly very realistic school administrator outlook.
What did you say? Mitch was gonna sue the school?
Sue? Who?
Buffy goes to check out the boys' locker room, which, by the way, is freaking huge. It's the size of an entire school. Buffy finds a message on the lockers that just says, "Look."
Giles speculates what it could be.
Someone with telekinesis, an invisible creature, or possibly a poltergeist.
And Buffy casually suggests to Willow,
You know, why don't you compile a list of dead or missing kids? It's probably a good place to start.
I thought she presented a very depressing subject in a very nonchalant way.
Cordelia talks to her friend Harmony about her boyfriend, and we get a weird flashback. And it seems that whoever was in the flashback might still be there watching them, as Harmony gets pushed down the stairs in front of Buffy.
I thought her getting shoved down the stairs was really funny, especially at the bottom when she says,
Oh, my ankle.
She just flew down that entire flight of like 10,000 stairs.
I liked the sound effects in that scene.
And I like Principal Snyder's response to that too.
Ow!
Don't sue.
Harmony says she was pushed, and Buffy follows some laughter that only she seems to hear for some reason. And then someone invisible seems to bump into Buffy in a room where there is easily enough space to walk around. Is the ghost also blind?
They can't see where they're going.
We see ceiling tiles being moved in the band room, and we hear someone moving around up there. If they're invisible, why would they need to hide in the ceiling?
Yeah, just stand in a corner. Since the only common denominator between the attacks is Cordelia, Buffy follows up on that lead. She sees Cordelia working on her May Queen dress, and again is very depressed that she's not young and attractive like Cordelia. God.
So much depth in this episode.
I was drowning in it.
And then she hears a flute, and she thinks it's weird, but it's a school. There's probably somebody just practicing on their flute.
I thought it was weird that they're all there after school, and they're working on her dress in a classroom or something.
Angel pulls a Batman on Giles.
Oh.
Why does he sneak up on him and not say anything even after Giles sees him? Then he gives Giles a cryptic warning, because that's his sole character trait at this point. And as usual, it's not helpful or informative in any way whatsoever.
And also, it's again trying to shoehorn the master overarching plot into this episode just so we don't forget it's a thing. But I haven't forgotten it's a thing. It would be nice if they only brought it up when it actually mattered. Angel also tells Giles that he can get a 15th century volume to assist his research.
It apparently contains very important prophecies about the Slayer.
And if Giles had just learned to use his freaking computer from the last episode, he wouldn't have to go through all that rigmarole.
Then we finally get a flashback where we see the invisible girl, back before she was invisible. And the music that plays is this somber, dramatic music that is completely at odds with how stupidly the scene plays out.
Did you see his toupee? I mean, it was like the worst.
We're talking, okay?
Oh, and did you guys check out that extreme toupee? Yeah, that's realistic.
The girl is played by Clea Duvall, and to me it was ironic that she was playing a girl who everyone ignored and forgot about, because in real life, I knew I recognized her from a bunch of movies, but without looking her up, I couldn't have told you what any of them were or what her name was. Cordelia wins the May Queen contest.
During her speech, there's some men in black hanging around the school. I would think someone else would have said something about that. It was weird.
And the same kids walk by them twice.
And Willow has done her research, violating several laws in the process.
This is the dead and missing list.
I pulled up their classes, activities, medical records.
Good work.
Buffy figures out that a girl named Marcy is the culprit because...
She played the flute.
So?
Well, last night when I was hunting, I heard this flute, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And it was in the band room that I lost Mr. Invisible yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
She checks out the band room and sees a footprint, and the only explanation is that that footprint was made by an invisible person.
She climbs up to the ceiling and finds Newt's lair, and she takes no precautions even though she knows she's dealing with someone invisible.
At one point, Marcy is standing behind Buffy with a knife.
So even though Buffy is stealing her yearbook, instead of stabbing her, she goes to choke a teacher with a plastic bag.
And it turns out that it's not Marcy. The real culprit is Matilda.
I like how the sound doesn't match the chalk at all.
While looking through the yearbook, the gang finds the horrible scrawls of assholes wishing Marcy a nice summer. How awful.
Have a nice summer is what you write when you have nothing to say.
It's the kiss of death.
Yeah, that was really dumb. Xander says...
What, she turned invisible because no one noticed her?
Which was the same thing I said, except in a much more incredulous tone.
Nobody can remember Marcy from school, even though they had classes with her. It's like she was invisible.
Giles spouts out some bullshit about the Hellmouth to make it sound more plausible, but it doesn't work. It's still a dumb idea. It reminded me of that X-Files episode where the people are living in the trees and can blend in, and Mulder suggests that they developed that ability because they just hung out in the trees for so long.
After 400 years in the woods, don't you think they might have adapted perfectly to their environment?
You're just making this up.
Wow, you will go through any length just to attack X-Files. That was a huge explanation with a very specific episode.
Yeah, it was dumb.
Such a dick. I agree with you about the Hellmouth. It was like the writers really couldn't think of anything and just used the Hellmouth as a MacGuffin. Then we get another flashback where Marcy doesn't get called on. Will this girl's suffering ever stop? I'm sure there are kids in this school who are experiencing actual problems like abuse, drug addiction, things like that. This whole flashback was so melodramatic. And then she starts turning invisible right in the middle of class. Nobody noticed that?
This was the least realistic scene in this episode. Not because she's turning invisible, not because she's able to turn her hand unusually far in this direction. I tried twisting my hand like that and I could not do it. But because all the kids in this class are way too eager to raise their hands to answer questions. That is not how real life works.
We can tell how motivated you were in school. How's your prospective career as a YouTuber going?
Cordelia busts into the library, and the scene was funny at first.
I know we've had our differences, with you being so weird and all.
But then it went overboard and started hitting me over the head again.
This is all about me! Me!
But then it got funny again.
You've got all those weapons? I was kind of hoping you were in a gang.
They explain to Cordelia what's going on and decide to use her as bait to trap Marcy.
During this whole scene, I was thinking that they know Cordelia is the target, but they're still explaining everything right out, even though Marcy is invisible. It's almost as bad as them explaining their plan in front of Moloch a couple of episodes ago. And of course, it turns out that she is watching them.
And then we get a character moment, that's in quotes, for Cordelia.
You think I'm never lonely because I'm so cute and popular? I can be surrounded by people and be completely alone.
There has been nothing in this show so far to indicate what she's saying, and we're all of a sudden supposed to feel sorry for her. I was rooting for the invisible girl up to this point. I don't think a little speech is going to change that.
And in this scene, we also get a good look at the weird shirt that Buffy is wearing.
She's always wearing weird shirts.
The others hear the flute in the library and decide to try to capture Marcy. They walk way far away from where they started. The flute turns out to be a recording, but even then I don't see how they could have heard it from so far away, through closed doors and everything too.
Maybe she was carrying the recording device through the hallways and luring.
Quit trying to justify this dumb episode.
So they get trapped in a room and Marcy turns on the gas to kill them.
Buffy tries to relate to Cordelia, but she gets pulled into the ceiling somehow. How is Marcy strong enough to do that?
Yeah, that's something that bothered me in this episode. Marcy is not supernatural. She's just invisible, but she exhibits all these feats of strength.
Buffy goes up into the ceiling to find Cordelia, but still takes no precautions whatsoever and gets knocked down, then injected with something and knocked out. How did Marcy get down from the ceiling so quickly? Maybe she has force field powers like Sue Storm, since she's invisible.
You gotta plug all our f***ing videos, don't you? Let's see. Maybe she's a snake woman. Maybe Jason is also in the school.
Buffy and Cordelia wake up tied up in the bronze.
I thought they were still in the school. How did Marcy get them all the way to the bronze?
Good question.
Cordelia's face is numb, and she's going to get carved up.
And we see another message waiting for them. Learn. Meanwhile, Giles, Willow, and Xander are all still trapped in the gas room. How much time has passed? Buffy tries to reason with Marcy and gets punched by a cartoon sound effect.
Marcy, you know this is wrong.
You should have stayed out of my way.
This whole time, I thought Buffy was faking being tied to the chair because she's super strong and we've seen her do all this incredible stuff, but apparently she can't break through a rope and can be taken down by one punch from a regular person.
Marcy cuts Cordelia's cheek, but Buffy knocks the tool tray into her and gets loose.
In a surprise move, Angel actually does something and saves the rest of the gang from the inevitable permanent brain damage they're all going to suffer.
And he gives Giles the book he was looking for. I was glad he actually gave an explanation for why he went down there.
I brought you the codex. I came in through the basement. I smelled the gas.
But seeing him here did make me wonder if he only owns one outfit.
Buffy uses her highly honed senses to take out Marcy. I was afraid they were going to do something where Buffy threw something onto Marcy and there was a really fake CGI-looking silhouette walking around.
Then the men in black show up to take Marcy away. How convenient to just get her completely out of the situation and not have to deal with any aftermath.
And not explain anything and just leave the other two people that witnessed the whole thing without saying don't say anything. It was dumb.
They didn't even use that mind wipe thing. They're probably going to get fired.
We close on the most budget-saving scene of all time, with Marcy being introduced to an entire room of invisible people. And my question was, how the f*** did she know where to sit down?
That was one of many questions that I had in this scene. And they're all being trained to be assassins, apparently.
Okay, is this going to come up again? Are there going to be a bunch of invisible assassins running around in a later episode?
No, they never come up again.
See, that's disappointing, because they could have come back. That would have been semi-interesting.
Yeah, I would rather just imagine this episode didn't happen.
Yeah.
Out of mind, out of sight. Overall?
Okay, I get it. The metaphoric implications of being invisible were subtle enough to violently asphyxiate me the entire episode. There's a whole room full of dead horses. The Hellmouth explanation was pretty lame. I would have preferred something with a little more substance. I thought it was silly how Marcy continually gives herself away by laughing out loud and playing her flute. I understand hiding out, but why did she feel the need to live in the school? That didn't make much sense to me.
And in the ceiling, of all places.
Yeah, and now Cordelia is, quote, part of the gang. As much as I hate her guts, I thought her introduction into the group was not terribly handled, even though this episode was really stupid. And for this episode being so heavy-handed, it was actually very shallow, because Marcy didn't actually have any serious problems. It was just that nobody really paid attention to her. If they really wanted the point to hit home, she would have had some more serious issues going on, other than no one's calling on me in class.
It was unintentionally funny sometimes, and very difficult to take seriously.
Agreed. This one wasn't great. This one wasn't good. This one was not even average. This one was stupid. I guess I could have just summed it up by saying it that way. I gave it a D+.
I gave it a C-. This episode was founded on a really dumb idea, and it was incredibly heavy-handed in its themes. In both of those ways, it reminded me of The Pack, but I guess I should just count myself lucky that this episode was better than that one, in my opinion. Angel seeming to pop up at random times was a little out of place, but I didn't really care because the main plot was not very interesting. I liked getting a bit of development for Cordelia, and there were some funny lines, but this was ironically a pretty forgettable episode. We only have one episode left for the season, and the track record leading up to it has not been very strong, so let's hope it's not a disappointment.